we're going to talk about the Japan market. A lot of people are asking me if there's a lot of fakes or what's going on with the market. Today we're going to dive in and go a bit more into detail of why and how the market got what it got. Hey guys, so today we're gonna be discussing the reason why the Japanese market is so much lower versus everywhere else in the world. And today I chose 5 watches that are gonna be really interesting, most common watches that everyone wants as a first watch. And I'm gonna discuss also the reasons why we got to that point where Japan is so much cheaper than anyone else, and why also it has its conveniences and it has its little defects in terms of a first purchase in the markets. First of all, the Japanese yen has been affected tremendously during the pandemic times by the lack of travelers. That's one of the main reasons that the yen dropped by about 20% during that time. I went to Japan last year. It was really eye-opening. It's very impressive what they have in terms of inventory. Most of dealers there have tremendous inventories. They have sometimes 1,000, 2,000 watches on the premises, if not more. You might want to choose a vintage Daytona or a newer Daytona, let's say, which is a very classic demand in this market. They have it. They have tons of Pepsis, that they have tons of brand new or used watches from every single era. When you have thousands of pieces in inventory, what happens is that the example of cars, when you had the GTR worth, for example, $50,000 prior to the pandemic, just an example, I'm just throwing numbers, and during the pandemic times, that same car tripled in price. For them, it wasn't a matter of, hey, we're making $100,000 per car. It wasn't the case anymore. Everyone caught on to the market. So what the Japanese did is that they have 10% tax, that if they sell it in Japan, they have to basically give it back to the government. But by exporting, even if you have about 10% margin, that 10% margin, you're getting your taxes back.
Oh shit. Tax free?
Tax free.
And basically what happens is that even if you paid full value on the car, you're just getting the 10% taxes back. And with a monthly volume of, let's say, $1 million, you can easily make $100,000 on that export volume. It's the same thing with watches. If you have an export volume of 100 200 watches a month and your margins are really relatively low and you're only making 5 8 10% on the volume, even less, but you're getting that deductible tax and you're getting it back from the government, it's really easy. If you're in 4% compounded at the end of the year, it could be over 60% if you compound all your money and you're turning it back in your business. So if you do that, obviously you're doing something really well.
Smart. That's smart.
And the volume and the inventory in Japan, because they were consuming so much luxury back in the 70s and especially the boom of the 80s, you have a tremendous amount of inventory there. Those are the main reasons why right now we have a huge visibility towards the Japan market. And they opened up, they all caught on to the fact that, hey, we can export the watches. Instead of just selling locally, we're gonna sell them on a platform, like in this case, it's gonna be Chrono24. Those watches, most of them are sold as is. You have to take into account that you're gonna have to pay your import fees when you're gonna import them. They don't do false declarations for their tax returns. Okay, they have to declare it completely correctly. Otherwise, they're not going to get their tax return back. They have to prove that they exported the watch. That's why you're going to have to pay the import. And on top of that, the fact that they're on the lower end, as I said, you need to have them serviced and most probably checked. That's why most of those watches are aggressively priced, but saving that might not be as much to your advantage if you're buying from Japan. In this case, if you pay $4,000 for a watch and you end up spending another $700-800 on the service, most probably it's worth better buying from a local dealer like me or someone else who might have the same watch for a very similar price. That's going to be serviced. It's going to be a local deal, and you're not going to have to claim any return or anything like that. So now let's dig into the 5 most coveted watches as the first watch from my perspective. So I have a lot of watches that are being demanded as a first buyer. So 1601 is primarily a Datejust with a fluted bezel. You have the two-tone version or the white gold bezel as well. So you have those two choices, either on leather band or on a Jubilee bracelet in most cases. A lot of people will prefer the Jubilee. It's the most classic watch out there. They made so many of them, and you can get one pretty cheap. I'd say every single city has a seller that has multiple ones of them. I don't have any. They're most of the time sold within a week or 2 weeks in the shop, but I'm expecting a few in the next few weeks. So if you're looking for one, check our website. There's going to be a few posted in the next week or so, and that's a great first choice as a watch. Then if you want to go on the second page, the second most coveted watch that I have in terms of requests is the Omega Speedmaster Reduced. It's a really nice watch for everyone that likes to wear it. The only downside of this watch is the fact that it has an ETA movement, a 2892 to be more precise. The problem with those watches most of the time, and that's why I tried to avoid buying them, is that they have the whole module of the chronograph is added to the movement, and it's something that's very hard to service, and it's very costly. So it has to be cost efficient to buy those watches. And most of the watches, again, same thing. We're looking at the Japanese market right now. You're gonna find them at 2400-2500. Let's say a watch like this is gonna cost me anywhere to from $600 to $800 to service, and that's gonna become very difficult for me to justify a premium on the watch. Around those prices, most of the time watches are not serviced. You don't know the history of them, and you might have a surprise when they get to you directly. The third watch that people are asking me for, and that's very special today, because in the past 6 months, the one coveted watch in the market is most probably the Cartier Santos. There's different versions. You have the ladies sizes, the men's sizes, and same thing here. You have a lot of choices from Japan. They're gonna be, most of the time, what I've remarked from Japan is that most of the watches, including Rolex, Cartier, are mostly maintained within the brand. So the maintenance is mostly done by Cartier, Rolex. You're gonna have most of the time box papers. The maintenance is really well respected with all the brands that I've seen coming in from Japan. Only thing is, if there's anything damaged, you might have to go to Cartier, which is gonna bring the cost higher up. But that's one of the watches that I would have no problem buying from Japan if you have no choice locally. And it's one of the best watches right now and the hottest watches on the market. When you're looking at the Cartier Santos of every size or any size, and you have also the Demoiselle, you have the 24 millimeters that are quite affordable as well. Moving on with another Rolex that I really enjoy is the 16233, which is the two-tone version of the 1601, 2 generations newer. So this is an upgraded movement from, so you had the 1570 and the 70s, the 3035 and the 80s for the Datejusts, and the 3135. In this case, you might have, again, a very big choice of dials. We're looking at the cheapest ones again right now from Japan. You have some around the $6,000 mark. We're looking around there in terms of price, including here in Canada. If you're coming to a shop like mine, maybe I'm gonna be roughly around the $65 to $7,500 mark, depending if you have box papers, condition, and mine are serviced as well. So there's not so much of a difference, but if you're really far away from like mine or a second-hand store, it might be a really good choice to buy from Japan. And that, again, it's a no comment in terms of design and in terms of timeless looks for this. And last but not least, a lot of people have realized that Grand Seiko is a good brand, especially in the vintage pieces. I myself have bought a Grand Seiko before anyone else that knew that it ever it even existed. But that's a great watch to wear. You have many different dials of variants from Japan. It's their, it's their own brand. So if you're talking watches, you're talking about Seiko and Grand Seiko as a whole, and you're gonna have really good choices. And if you're patient, you're gonna have a great watch that you're gonna buy. Condition wise, just take the time to find what you're looking for, but you cannot go wrong with the Grand Seiko. This is exactly what I had in the past, a similar one to their, I believe, 36 millimeters, which is what it is, and it's a 7010 reference watch. So if you want to look at that, that's also a great choice. And if you're looking in the modern pieces, again, because there's so much made in Japan and they're making a lot of limited editions, you're gonna have a great choice there. So overall, if you want to buy from Japan, I'd say first of all, calculate the cost of importing the watch in your country. Second of all, you're gonna have to factor in service for certain models, especially if it's something vintage, if it's something that has over 20-25 years. Most of those consignment shops or dealers that buy bulk, they're not gonna guarantee the watch. They're gonna tell you the accuracy, but it doesn't mean that the watch might keep time that it doesn't need a service. So even if a watch is within 5-10 seconds a day, you're going to look at the error beat, which might be over 0.5, could be 2, 3, or higher, which that denotes the fact that the oil's dried out and it takes time for the balance wheel to go back and forth. Or let's say the amplitude can be really low, so we're looking at 120, 150, 200. Those are too low of numbers to actually wear a watch on a daily basis, and it's not going to be reliable on the long term. So you have to factor in, again, import, the service, and the fact that you haven't seen the watch in person. You might, in the end, it's going to be up to you to choose the Japanese market to buy a watch or not. It's going to be also the fact that they might have something that you don't you don't have in the local market, like the Grand Seiko, for example. But always think about what's best for you, what kind of service after sale you're gonna get. That's why we're here, and we're mostly doing business with North America because we have that proximity. Again, I do buy watches for the store from Japan. I do have great experience dealing with them, and they're super honest people. So you're not gonna have surprises in terms of honesty. You're maybe gonna have surprises in terms of condition, or maybe in terms of polishing of the watch overall, but I'd say you're not gonna have any bad surprises in general. So have a good day, guys. I wish to do more videos like this in the future, so let me know in the comments if you like this one. And I'm gonna try to do something else down the road if you're asking me to. Subscribe and please follow for more. Thank you, guys.